Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, June 5th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over everything you're going to need to know about Game 1 of the NBA Finals, as well as Aaron Rodgers finding a new home, this time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this segment, we talk about some more drama from around the NFL, some wide receiver news. Terry McLaurin looking to be fed up. He left minicamp after a not so good discussion about his long-term future with the Washington Commanders, as well as an update from another wide receiver in Baltimore. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, June 5th. But like I was saying, we're going to get here into what we need to know about the wide receiver news from around the NFL. And we're going to start off in our nation's capital. Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders are at odds. McLaurin, of course, top 10 receiver in the NFL. Maybe that's a little bit too high for him, but that's probably right around where you would put him in there, 10 to 15 range, maybe up to 8. He is a guy that with Jaden Daniels really exploded onto the scenes, at least of the national scenes. He's always been an incredible wide receiver without a great quarterback. But he's also taken a bunch of pay cuts and sacrificed a lot to stay with a franchise in Washington that was not great, to say the least, at times when he was there. He survived through that Dan Snyder era. He survived through the 2 different name changes. He is here, and if there's anybody on that team that deserves to be paid for being a leader and being the guy that has just been through the storm and through everything, it's him. And the fact that the Commanders, who seemingly have turned that franchise around, at least with its culture behind GM Adam Peters and new president and owners over there, this is something that I was not expecting. I thought they would just basically write a blank check for Terry McLaurin. I know he's a little bit older at age 30, but how do you see this turning out? We'll start with Mehrob on this one. How do you see the situation kind of playing out right now if you are Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, it's definitely a very tough spot to be in if you're Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin, obviously one of the more underrated wide receivers in the NFL, went through a lot of tough years in the nation's capital, had a lot of tough times, played with a lot of quarterbacks and under a lot of head coaches. Was there with the Ron Rivera era, if you guys remember that a couple years ago. He's been through it all. He's been through a lot of coaches, a lot of quarterbacks. But now, last year, settling down with Jaden Daniels has been a phenomenal. It's really just been a resurrection to his career. Not only has it been a good addition for Jaden Daniels, a good, solid, accurate target for Jaden Daniels to throw to, but it's also uplifted Terry McLaurin's career a little bit, brought him up into that top 10 conversation where he already deserved to be in, but put him in the spotlight, and that's exactly where he deserved to be. If you're Terry McLaurin, it's tough. If you're the Washington Commanders as a whole, it's tough because you know Jaden Daniels is going to want a contract extension soon. And if I had to guess, that's probably why they got into an argument to begin with. But Terry McLaurin's been there for years. He definitely deserves a say in the conversation, and it's definitely a tough call for him. But at the end of the time, man, if it wasn't for your quarterback, you wouldn't be where you are. But you deserve to be in the conversation. But you can play devil's advocate. There's definitely an argument for both sides of it. But it's just a tough spot to be in if you're Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just surprised they haven't re-signed. I mean, what he has done for the org, like Jeremy said, like you said, he's been around there forever. He's been around this since he gets just for a long time, and he's seen some pretty rough eras. He's been around some pretty poor teams, some pretty poor quarterbacks, and he stuck around. He stuck with it because he saw something. He saw something happening there in Washington, and he wanted to stay. And last year, it happened. They got over the hump. They went to an NFC title. Granted, they got they got defeated pretty poorly to the Eagles. There was a pretty not close game. Let's just say that. But I mean, he deserves everything they're going to throw at him. Whatever money he gets, they should double it because he is just that good a receiver. Last year, obviously, I'm saying a lot because he was also on my fantasy team last year. He helped me win a fantasy championship. So obviously, I'm saying all good things about him, and hopefully, I can get it back again this year. But he was so good this year. He was your go-to guy. He was obviously their go-to receiver, and him and Jane Daniels, that immediate connection they had when he got to minicamp last year was immediate. I mean, Daniels was obviously the second overall quarterback, second overall pick in the draft, second quarterback taken, and for a reason. He has proven himself to be the best quarterback so far from that and in my opinion, from that draft class. I think he's better than Bo Nix, which it's not crazy to say. Caleb Williams, he's only going to get better, but he's Ben Johnson now. He's going to be a great quarterback. I mean, there's obviously other quarterbacks there as well, but he, in my opinion, was the best one. He had the most success last year, and him being able to just find Terry McLaurin anywhere in the field at any time really just proves how good McLaurin is. He was doing all that. He was their number one guy, number one player on the team for years, and with horrible quarterbacks, just not good quarterbacks at all. And last year, he gets finally an elite quarterback, an elite, fast, accurate rookie quarterback, and he just absolutely dominates the spotlight. And this really just shows how good of a receiver he was. He was like that. He was just like that at Ohio State as well, and it just translated over to the NFL. He's just dominant. You want to get up, you want to throw a 50-50 ball, he's going to go up for it. He'll probably come down with it. He's just that good a receiver. And honestly, whatever money they like I said, they should throw him. Whatever they're going to throw at him, double it because that's exactly what he deserves. Even though he's getting a little older, he's still a great receiver.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin right now at age 30, basically, he'll turn 30 in week 2 of this NFL season, is making a little less than $23 million a year right now. He is a guy that deserves to be paid more. Obviously, I don't think anybody is really advocating for Terry McLaurin to be paid as the best receiver in the NFL. That would mean dishing out $40 million a year, right? That's not going to happen. He's not getting that. But to push him up into that tax bracket, that $30 million a year kind of situation, you give him a 3 or 4 year contract. Say you give him a 4-year, $30 million a year deal, 35 maybe even. You give him that kind of money, it would be right alongside a lot of the top receivers in the league. You guys bring up paying Jayden Daniels. And Jayden Daniels just finished off his rookie season. He's going to have 4 more years when you include that 5th-year option that they're inevitably going to take with him to work out a contract. So you give McLaurin a 4-year deal. That takes you through the end of it, and maybe the timing isn't necessarily what you want, but you wouldn't have to have both of those contracts on the books at the same time. If a 34-year-old Terry McLaurin isn't who you want on your team anymore, you can sign him to a cheaper contract or just let him walk after and still give that massive contract you're going to have to give to Jayden Daniels once that happens. But there's no reason not to pay Terry McLaurin what he wants. At least get him up to that 32-ish million dollar a year. Make him make more money than Brandon Ayuk, who does not deserve $30 million a year anyway. That's a whole nother discussion. But he should get paid. If not because of how good he is, because of what he's sacrificed and what he's given in to this organization. Terry McLaurin, a very special talent, a very special player on and off the field, and I hope he gets rewarded for it by an organization that is doing their best to turn everything around. But outside of that, you go north just a couple of hours, more wide receiver news, as we have now seen Rashad Bateman get paid. He finally had a healthy season. 3-year, $39 million deal for Rashad Bateman to stay a Baltimore Raven. He was really good when he was on the field. He just had a lot of trouble getting on the field. A really elite deep threat for Lamar Jackson and his MVP-ish season last year. A very responsible contract, I'll say. There's lots of receivers in that kind of Rashad Bateman range that were getting overpaid. I think of a guy like Darius Slayton, who got a very similar contract, a lot of money for him. Rashad Bateman is absolutely worth that kind of money as long as he can stay healthy. What do you guys think of this contract for Rashad Bateman, though?
When I take a look at Rashad Bateman, it's tough because when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, it always feels like their wide receiver class is always struggling a little bit. It feels like it's a step behind, but Lamar Jackson always finds a way to make it work. He finds a way to uplift it in a way. Rashad Bateman is definitely one of the younger receivers in the league, and I don't know if I'd call him the number one receiver on the team, but I'd definitely call him definitely either number two or number three for sure. I'd definitely just put Zay Flowers over him. But when we look at Rashad Bateman, he's been on the team for a while. He's been reliable. He's taken less money to start his career. His finally gets paid a little bit. It's just going to be about how he responds. If he can keep it up, if he can keep improving a little bit and make that contract worth the money that the Ravens gave him. That's what it's going to come down to. I think he will. Obviously, when we think of the Ravens, they definitely need to win a championship, and I don't think a lot of that blame goes on Bateman. But that's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the Ravens. What moves can they do? What can they do that can solidify them a championship over the next at least year or two for sure?
I mean, you're not wrong. He's a great receiver. He is like you said, number 2, number 3 receiver on that team behind Zay Flowers. And being signed, like I said, 3-year, $39 million, that's a great deal. It's not crazy. It's $13 million a year for a reliable receiver when he's healthy. Granted, the keyword there is healthy because he tends to be injured a lot. He is only on the field, I'd say, what was it? I believe 12 games last year. I mean, he wasn't on there all the time, but when he was out there, he was making good plays. If you're not targeting Zay Flowers, you're finding Rashad Bateman. Granted, there's some Mark Andrews sprinkled in there, but I'm not sure if Ravens fans are the biggest fan of Mark Andrews recently. Just it happened in the Bills game last year, brutal. But I mean, he's a great receiver. He deserves that money. He's not, like you said, there's no number one. He's not the number one, especially in the Ravens. But for the cheap deal that he got for a 3-year, almost $40 million contract, it's a great deal. They're not overpaying him at all, and they're paying him for what he's worth. And if he manages to stay healthy for those next 3 years, and maybe can keep improving, maybe we'll sign on something bigger. Maybe like another 3-year. Maybe instead of 40, it'll be like a 60, 70, $80 million contract. Who knows? But I think it's a good signing. He's gonna be a reliable receiver when he's out there. He doesn't drop a lot. He gets up. He can find open spot. He gets open a lot. He's fast, and whenever if you need him, he's there for you. So I think it was a good signing.
Yeah, that's going to be the big question, of course, is his health. He's really struggled to stay healthy throughout the course of his career with Baltimore. If he can do that, I don't think there's any doubt about how this works out. But it's not too big of an investment. $12 million a year for this guy in Rashad Bateman, who can just be a really solid deep threat for you. He's good for a 40-yard bomb a game, which game-changing plays are huge, and you need to have those kind of lightning bottle moments if you are going to be an elite offense in the NFL nowadays. Having Rashad Bateman for sure helps a lot. But we're going to take a quick break here. Lots of wide receiver news to go over. Raul in the comments here talking a little bit ahead in the future about Shedeur Sanders and the Browns. We have some quarterback news, both him maybe taking that starting spot, and some news around Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson, a new injury. Is his career done? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.